welcome back to another photo critique. I'm Toby.
And I'm Christina.
It's been a little while. As you know, I'm going to slide this page over here, that the general critique is on hiatus. It's taking a leave of absence, a sabbatical, if you will.
Sure, except for right now we're doing...
Well, we are critiquing assignments. We're still going to do our monthly assignment. You can see that even Christina's a little confused by that. She wasn't sure. She didn't know if that was part of your contract or not. We got to get those terms updated.
Oh, yeah.
The March assignment, I think I'm showing you an old page actually, but if you just, well, I'll put a link. I'll put a link right down below this show to where to go to submit for the April assignment. Those are the only ways to get critiques right now. And the April assignment topic is repetition. Should I repeat that? All right. We've got some images from the March assignment, which was depth of field. Show us your mastery of depth of field in these photos. And we've narrowed it down to a handful that we're just going to start rolling through. And you know, we used to like hem and haw and say, well, this show is going to be, we're going to spend 10 to 15 minutes or this or 5. We're just going to do it, and whatever it is, it is. And you can come along for the ride if you like, and if not, see you later. So let's jump right in with this picture here.
Yeah. Okay, so we have this image from
Federico.
And
Lentini.
It shows a shallow depth of field. What is the f-stop? The f-stop is 4.5. So you still have some softening of the background, but you can still see the features. You can still see what they are. So you have enough of a depth of field that you can tell what's in the background.
Right.
Usually, so one of the things that we usually advise our viewers to do when they're struggling with a very basic background is to open up their aperture and shoot at a wider depth of field, so at a smaller f-stop. And this can be helpful in many situations, but as you can see from this picture, not in every situation, because we've got just a very, very, almost very light intersection of this blade of, what would you call it?
It's the top of some seagrass or something.
Seagrass,
you know.
okay.
That's what we're going to call it.
So the seagrass is almost intersecting with that rock. And that creates a lot of tension for me in the picture that I don't think should be there. So my eye keeps going to that rock. Not to mention there is a lot of contrast in that rock. There's a lot of very dark spots near the intersection between the blade of seagrass and the rock. It's very dark there. So my eye keeps getting pulled back there. And yeah, it doesn't let me walk through the image and look at other parts of it. So I think that's a pretty big problem.
Yep.
I would have composed this image or the seagrass maybe all along this negative space right to on the left. That may have been better. I would have composed it right here, maybe closer to here, so that there would be even spacing between the edge of the photo and then the rock, and that would be kind of framing it. Probably also avoid intersection with the horizon line, because that just would make a cleaner photo.
Yep.
So overall though, nice colors. I like the colors. It looks like it was taken at a pretty nice time of day where the light was pretty, so yeah.
Yeah, yep. I agree with everything you said, Christina. Really, the close proximity of the top of the grass, which is the clear subject, and that rock is distracting, and I'd love to see it have some room and breathing room. And something that you really need to watch out for is that horizon line and intersecting. Now, you could go below and shoot up a little bit so it's clearly up in the sky, or you could come up a little bit and shoot down so that it's clearly away from that horizon line. But think that looks, I think that's enough talking about that picture. Thank you, Federico. And we've got one from Luis.
Cats.
Cat.
So a lot of people submitted pictures of cats for this assignment. And we are just wondering if you guys are all trying to appeal to me because you know how much I love cats. And if you are, thank you. Unfortunately, as much as I would want to, and I try, we cannot feature all pictures of cats, no matter how adorable and cute they might look and how much I might want to look at them. But anyway, so we ended up with this picture. And again, shallow depth of field. It's a great portrait of the sweet cat. And again, we are talking about intersecting lines in the background. You can still have a depth of field, but you've got lots of very bright colors back here. Color can really take your eye away from a picture, especially since you've got some, the cat's it's fairly neutral except for these black spots. I mean, that definitely, the black spots and the contrast in the fur definitely helps, as well as the contrast in the eyes. But you've got this bright green and you've got this coppery type color back here that's really, really distracting. You have to watch out for those things and make sure you frame your subject's head around those distractions. And if you can all together, then, try to really simplify the colors in the background as much as you can.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. How can you deal? I mean, there's green stuff back there. How can you not get the green?
Well, so I mean, one thing to keep in mind is we're doing a critique. So we're going to try to find as much as we can things to suggest that will improve this photo. Mm-hmm. So that's part of why I'm saying that.
Gotcha.
But because this is a nice portrait and, the kitty's in focus and the background's out of focus, but my eye does keep going back to that. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's just, my suggestion is more for like trying as much as possible to frame things on camera as you're shooting and just try to get people in that sort of mindset and help them do that. But if you do end up with a picture where you can't do anything about it, for a picture like this, I think it's totally fine. But if you do want to go the extra step, I would probably desaturate the greens a little bit and maybe desaturate the oranges, trying to avoid or desaturate the cat. Yeah. But it can be done. It's not about so much the intersection, it's just about the contrast in color. It's just that green is very vibrant and juxtaposed with the orange is just a little heavy.
Yeah, I agree. The green is distracting. I think you've really nailed your focus here. The focus on the eyes is great. It's nice and it's sharp. We can zoom in. It's starting to get a little soft. You can see how shallow your depth of field is because even as the front here is just a tiny bit soft and back here. So at 85 millimeters on a crop sensor, f1.4, you are working with a very shallow depth of field and you did a great job here.
Yeah, that's really difficult.
Love the catch lights in the cat's eyes up in the corners like that. I think that adds a little bit of life and increases that. And I love this contrast of these clean white whiskers against the black fur.
Yeah.
And it just came out nice. And so the cat is positioned very nicely, but I disagree with Christina in that green colors in the background.
Yeah, again, let me just reiterate. This is a great picture of this cat.
I didn't think you were unnecessarily harsh.
Okay. I do feel bad sometimes.
You feel bad because it's a cat.
No.
And the cat might listen to this.
No, I feel bad because people are human and they have feelings, and I don't want to be too rough.
Right. Thank you, Luis. Now we got Gauti Eriksson. I think that's how. Wow. I won't try to do any more accents.
No, don't please.
Okay. When I proposed this assignment, I had in my mind many pictures like this and like this, where people focused on a subject in the foreground and had used a shallow depth of field. But Christina reminded me as we started to look through these photos that a mastery of depth of field is clearly not only that, but it's picking an aperture that is appropriate for your scene. And in this case, we have got this long curving waterfall, and I think the general composition here is really nice. I like this. I like where the waterfall is positioned on kind of the left side of the frame, moving all the way into the center. and we've got that motion out to the right. I think that's all great. And at 18 millimeters, we're using an f4, which I think it's really interesting to compare and contrast back here, 18 millimeters, f4.5. This is showing you the clear difference in how shallow your depth of field can be when you focus, when your subject is much closer.
Yeah.
Whereas here, the focus is probably somewhere out there in the middle of the waterfall, and so it pretty much appears like all of this is in sharp focus.
Yeah, so depth of field is relative to not just your aperture, but also the distance from the lens to your subject.
That's right.
Correct? That's what you're trying to say.
Yep, that's what I'm trying to say. I thought I said it. That said, I think I would have gone for just a little bit more depth of field here. I think f5.6, f7. You're at ISO 100, so you could have gone to ISO 200 or 400 to easily get a little bit more. And I don't necessarily think that would have improved this photo greatly, but I think you may have gotten just a slightly sharper picture. I'm going to guess at 18 millimeters, this is a kit lens. Yeah, the 18 to 135. It's just going to be a little bit sharper, a little bit nicer at those apertures. You're going to be closer to its sweet spot, the spot where the lens performs the best. And that doesn't mean you should always shoot there, but in a case like this where you are trying to get pretty much everything in sharp focus, I think it'd be better.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would also say that you could have stopped down, so you could have used a larger f number just for the sole reason of not blowing out your highlights. So if we go to the develop module really quickly and we decrease the exposure just a touch.
We are working on a raw image.
We can see that
there's data in there.
There is actually, yeah.
Huh.
So you know what? Maybe it could have been a little bit darker, but good for you for exposing for the shadows. Because if you had underexposed that picture way too much, you would certainly have lost some of those shadows on the left there, where the flowers and vines are sort of climbing up on the rocks.
Yep.
So I think this picture needs a little bit of post-processing work. I love the composition. I think that the waterfall is really nicely framed between the left and the right parts of the frame. The right part being the sort of green water that's already settled a little bit, and then the mountain at the top, and then the left part being those rocks that I just was talking about. I think that in order to make this photo a little bit more balanced, you should probably darken the right side a little bit more using not the adjustment brush.
I'm driving the mouse trying to guess what Christina is going to say. You could take the mouse over right there.
By using the gradual adjustment tool. Is that what it's called? I always forget what it's graduated filter. Yeah.
Right.
So you could just burn a little bit. And if you don't know how to use it, if you don't know how to use these tools, we have a Lightroom series that'll walk you through every single one of them. Episode 3 is the one where we talk about localized adjustments. So check that out if you would like. Otherwise, just grab the graduated adjustment tool, dial in, burn, and then darken it to your liking. And that will make it
into a raw doctor.
Feel just a very, very little preview.
Yep.
That will make the focus be more about this, and this will act more as a frame. See how it already is working to frame the waterfall.
Yeah, nice. Nice. So I just want to go back to, one, that I really like this picture, and I think the composition is strong, as Christina just demonstrated. It could benefit from a little post-processing. And my comments about the aperture, honestly, I don't think we would really see a difference here in this shot. If
I think we would. I think we would. Yeah, I think that the background would be more in focus, and I don't think that the parts that are in focus would be any sharper. You know, the parts where the focus was dialed in, I don't think those would be any sharper, but I do think that the background would be a lot more in focus.
What's a smudge? UFO. UFO in this picture.
Or a dust spot.
Or a dust spot. Well, but that's not going to show up at f4.5. Let's fix that UFO. There we go. Oh, I left a little tail of it. Okay, moving on. Thank you. And now we've got Dalabor's Spiderweb and some little bridge thing somewhere. This is, when this came up, we both said, ooh.
Yeah, there's a lot of impact.
It has impact. Depth of field is used nicely to illustrate, I don't know what. I can't think of what to say, but it made us go, ooh.
Well, one of the first things that stands out about this picture to me is the feel of it. So you've got a lot of light coming in from behind. So from in front of the camera, from above, this light.
Front lit?
It's not front, it's backlit.
It's backlit.
So you've got a lot of light streaming in from here, from behind these trees and the top of this arch. And to me, that makes me feel, that reminds me of days when I've been camping and it's really dewy in the morning and the light is just very soft and very clean and not very warm because the sun's just starting to come up. So it's still kind of a cool light. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I'm trying to say is that you can use elements of your photo to give certain feel, whether that be color, whether that be light, whether that be, anyway. So different photos will mean different things to different people based on their experiences. And to me, this photo, that's what it reminds me of because of all the greenery, because of like the sort of, this reminds me of like a camping entrance. So anyway, It has kind of a nostalgic feel for me, and I think that's part of that was part of the
reaction
of the impact that for me, I think it had. With regards to the depth of field, I think that if the background had been any more in focus, then we would have lost the spiderweb. I think it was really nicely done.
I was looking for our aperture information. How come we don't have any aperture information, Dalibor? You must have been using a manual lens on your NEX6.
It's just a really cool image.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that helps its impact is the framing here, and I'm going to assume this is deliberate. Dalibor, I've seen your other work and know that you...
Yes.
The fact that we're peaking right up here near the center of the spiderweb. And the lines of the roof of this little entrance to this bridge or whatever it is almost are lined up with the lines radiating out of the spiderweb.
Yeah, that is actually, I hadn't noticed that, but you're completely right. That just makes the focus be, that top. But it doesn't get stuck. My eye doesn't get stuck there. My eye still travels because of the lines. Because the lines are radiating out from there. That's where my eye starts, and then it goes down to the rest of the image.
Yep. And you know what we always talk about? We should make it a little bit bigger. I think this is a nice image, and it's just little things like that, like taking the time to look at lines in your image and match them up, make them work with each other that really can add impact. This isn't some huge, amazing thing. It's just simple, and it made a difference.
Yep.
Great. Thank you, Dalibor. Murdoch it took us a few minutes until we took the time to read the caption. This is an incredible macro. It's a little end of a 0.5 millimeter mechanical pencil taken with a reverse-mounted 10 to 24 Tamron whose aperture control lever was wedged half open with a piece of paper. Now, actually, Murdoch, I'll be honest, I don't quite understand that last part, how you were wedging open the aperture control level. But I'll let people know in general that reverse mounting lenses can give you incredible macro capabilities. Typically, you lose aperture control, and it's going to shoot at your widest, which for really close macro work is very difficult. You're working with depth of fields that are fractions of an inch. But clearly, in this case, you somehow wedged open your aperture with the paper. We don't quite get what your aperture was.
That's crazy.
It's not reporting back. But
it sounds pretty badass, I will say.
Well, it does. I will say that for those who don't want to do that, Scott just passed me a link to Velo brand. Those are the macro extension tubes we've been using.
Yep.
They have a reverse mounting system that that has a little electronic cord that goes out to the other end of the lens to allow you to continue to have aperture control. And they're like 99 bucks. I hope to talk about them more soon.
That's pretty cool.
That all said,
I don't know that we wanted to talk about this picture because of the aperture or the depth of field. I think we mostly just want to talk about it as a cool picture.
well, I mean, it's just an example. I mean, there is the depth of field, as I said, is incredibly small. But you've nailed it here, and we've got all of the front of this device in focus, and then you can see in the back it gets out of focus. And again, we're talking about very, very small device, and looks good. I wonder what it would be like if there was just a little bit of drawing done down here, if we could just see a little bit of like the graphite trail.
That might be cool, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Murdoch. Blue Tit by Roger Hunt.
This is a really cute bird.
It is.
And the depth of field is very, very shallow, which helps him stand out a lot. And you can see there are lines, but I mean, the depth of field is so shallow that they just kind of blend in together.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a lot of critique to give because it's a really nice picture.
Yep. It's nice. I think this is a great illustration of, here we are at f5.6 with an incredibly shallow depth of field because of our focal length.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think we have been stumbling through this a little bit, talking about how you can affect your depth of field. One is your aperture, one is your depth, one is your distance to your subject, and another, of course, is your focal length.
Yeah. All
of these things work together to control your depth of field. In this case, I imagine you weren't terribly close, but you were out at 400 millimeters, 5.6, and just want to zoom in a little bit, so it's just curious. It's nice. I may have moved him a little to the left, so that eye is a little more on the left, a little more room on the right looking into the frame. That's minor critique. I think the colors here are really nice, and he stands out so nice from that kind of muted, natural background.
Yep, I disagree, I think.
You like him where he is?
Picture, yeah.
Okay. Are we allowed to have more than one cat in a critique at a time?
I say yes.
Okay.
So this picture we kept because it's just, I don't know, the light is really soft and really beautiful in this picture. And I think it complements well the sort of, I want to say, without anthropomorphizing the cat too much, his or her pensiveness. But
that cat's just wondering when it's going to get fed again. That's all cats do.
Yeah. But anyway, no, it's nice, and the depth of field is pretty shallow, so that helps focus, bring focus to the nose and the eyes a little bit more. So, yeah, I don't think I have much more to add.
I think it's a lovely shot. The light is really nice. What I like about this is that you can really see our depth of field. Look at the rug. Ignore the cat for a minute. You can see where the area of focus begins and ends. It's this little narrow plane moving through the photo, and you have positioned it perfectly. So we've got good focus from just before the cat's chin, cute fuzzy little chin, to just after the eyes. And that is great. I also love your general composition, rule of thirds. Your horizon line is down here in the lower third. It just plays nicely. Very nice job. This is taken with the Sigma 18-35, which is a lovely, lovely lens. Thank you, JP. Cute cat. This one we had similar feelings to maybe the first cat photo, in that brilliant blue back there is a little distracting, and maybe also doesn't feel quite so natural. But that said, what I liked about it is I think it's framed nicely here. What we don't have, and what is good, is intersections with our clear subject. We've got breathing room around it, and we can even see there's another branch back there, but it's got some room. It's got some life, and it kind of fits and feels like it's being naturally framed.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that. I'm really not loving the colors, particularly the blue, and this is why. When you frame a picture as much as you can, you should try to keep in mind that complementary colors go better with one another than, colors that aren't complementary. In this case, pink and blue are not complementary colors. So by saturating the blues a lot more and maybe even the pinks a little bit, you're actually not, these colors don't look great together. So, I think if you desaturated the blue a little bit, or maybe even the pink, then you would get a little bit more of a muted color palette and it would be a little bit more pleasing. The other thing you've got going on here is that it was shot in full sun. So, the bloom is very nicely lit. And that makes the sky really vibrant. But the shadows are pretty hard. So you want to sort of try to minimize the effect of the full sun and try to decrease the contrast and, again, just decrease the saturation in the colors a little bit because they're not complementary colors. So, they're not going to look as great as, if the flower, instead of pink, the center of it was like yellow. That would look better, or orange. That would look better. And then you could probably saturate a little bit more.
Yep. I think somebody could make an argument that to some degree it's personal choice. Like you tend towards these kind of bright, I don't want soft color images where somebody else, this might really appeal to them, this vibrancy and this rich blue.
Well, I agree with you. To some extent. I mean, I do think that a lot of the stuff that we're saying is personal preference and personal aesthetic choices. But also, I mean, we talked in a couple of photo mishmashes ago that, we said that there have been studies where people have been presented, a large group of people have been presented photos and they have basically determined that there is a broad understanding of what makes a good photo, So I'm sort of basing it on that, and it is a known fact that complementary colors are more pleasing to the eye when they're used together than non-complementary colors are. So again, I'm not opposed to the saturation. I'm opposed to the saturation of these two particular colors. I don't think that they go super well together. I think it's a nice picture. I agree with you on the framing. And even the fact that it was lit by the full sun, I think that was well done. Because you don't have any overexposures or anything like that. But I just don't love the pink and the blue. To me, that really...
Gotcha. Okay. I'd just like to point out that I think we've got a real nice mix of focal lengths and apertures illustrating nicely all of the different ways to get depth of field or the differences possible. Here we are at 200 millimeters f8. f8!
Yeah.
And we have clear separation of subject from background.
Yeah.
It's dependent on so many different factors.
Yeah.
Flaming Gorge by we don't know who. Oh, Jeff. By Jeff.
So this, it's a f5 at 75 millimeters. So this I thought that we should include because it's a really great example of how your plane of focus, so your plane being...
like we saw in the cat picture?
Yeah.
The second cat picture?
This so the angle of your subject, your lens to your subject, changes your depth of field. Right. So who took this picture?
Jeff.
If Jeff had taken this picture from a bird's eye view, so from straight above, straight down, he would have gotten all of this in focus. And you guys probably know this. I mean, I don't need to tell you this.
And we probably wouldn't have picked it.
It's true, yeah, because it probably would have been a lot harder to frame. It would have been not that you couldn't do it, Jeff. I just think that.
Well, here I interrupted you, so let me ask you if you were telling him. Are you telling him you think it would be a stronger picture if he had taken it from directly above?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm just explaining what happens when you slightly tilt your camera.
Gotcha.
The plane of you slightly tilt your plane, and you shoot pictures that way. So you get the front of the subject in focus, or the foreground in focus, or you could focus on the background too, but we don't recommend doing that. So I guess I was just trying to say that, you know, I chose that because it's a great example of how you can add depth just by tilting your camera a little bit and changing the plane of focus.
Right.
Okay. So this can work to your advantage in this particular situation, situations like these, or when you are photographing, like, you know, a table of things and you're trying to frame everything but not necessarily bring focus to everything. You have things that are out of focus in the background, but it doesn't work well when you are photographing, like, say, you know, a face necessarily. If you're shooting at a shallow depth of field and your face is not parallel to your lens, then you're going to lose focus in parts of that face. And so you might want to do that, you know, for creative reasons, or you may not, but it's something that you should consider.
Yep. And I like this image, and I think the colors, the riot of colors is what I would call this, is very cool. I think it may be a stronger image from above. Now, I'm saying we wouldn't have picked it because it wouldn't have necessarily illustrated depth of field so nicely, but a kind of a bird's eye view of this, I think, would have been trippy, almost like a satellite photograph of some very strange planet, because we've got all of these different kind of lichen here together in these different colors. So I think that would be interesting. But as this is taken here, I think this is nice as well. I maybe crop in just a little bit. We got just a little bit of this orange peeking back in on the corner, which grabs my eye a little bit. But otherwise, I think it's nice.
Yep, I think it's nice. I think that cropping it anymore would just completely disturb the balance.
It would then crop into here.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do just a little remove of that. Okay?
Okay.
You're not on board
I don't have
with
an issue with it. I think it adds balance to it.
All right, folks, this was our March depth of field assignment photo critique. Thank you to everybody submitted. You know, I'm sorry that we don't get to critique all of them, but we just can't. We thought these all nicely illustrated different aspects of depth of field, and we went with them, and we thank those folks for putting themselves out there. No, it's not always easy. Your April assignment, which will be due towards the end of April, is to use repetition to make a strong, compositionally beautiful image or impactful image. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.
Goodbye.